And here's the problem. A lot of us are going to see that payment option of making that minimum payment, and then we all of a sudden get into the trouble of the green chart on page 155, and we're paying extra and extra and extra because we can never keep up or catch up. So again, that's where you really got to pay attention to, can I use this credit card at the times that I want? You got to be really careful of that. So again, I'm not saying the way that I do it is better than, some people have to use credit cards to get out of trouble. But then those same people will use a credit card to get out of their first credit card's trouble. But then what happens? Now we're in double trouble with our second credit card, and so on and so forth. Okay, and then you get that green chart on page 155 for multiple things, and you can't ever catch up. So again, like I said, I use it in a specific way because I really don't ever have to use my credit card. But again, most people or a lot of people can't do that. You just don't have the money to do that. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with the credit card. You just have to make sure that you're ready to make payments on it. And again, the better that you are is by making more than a minimum payment. So whatever they suggest you making as a payment, always try to do more than that. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, we're going to go through this process and we're going to see how much money is going to be at the end of our basically credit card bill. So we're still looking at our previous balance. We're still trying to figure out a finance charge just like we have all month or all chapter long. And then we're going to make a payment. Hopefully it's more than a minimum payment. If you go back to page 154, we're going to look at these two examples here. Okay?
So if you had, so I read somewhere that if you don't, pay it, if you get the money and you just pay it all off, and then, but they said you shouldn't do that because you'll lose money by doing that.
What?
So, is it better to pay it, in, increments, or is it better if you have the money to just pay it off?
I would say to pay it off.
Okay,
But you have to assure yourself that you still have money then to
right,
live life.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, so if you're going to use all of your money up to pay off that bill and not, then you would want to try to figure out what's the biggest installment that I can pay off. And I want to make it as big as I possibly can and go as high as I possibly can over that minimum value. That's where the green chart is showing you that that's my minimum payment. They will tell you what that is. So, again, if you could pay it off, I would say you're way better off paying it off right away. But then if you can't, you got to, that's where your budget comes in. You knowing how much you're bringing in and how much you're giving out in that monthly process. What are my expenses compared to what I'm bringing in? And we'll do a whole chapter on that to figure out what my budget is, okay? But that would be then, so we'll stress in that chapter that you should always have a kind of an extra column. That's where your extra column would go to, trying to pay off that credit card bill so you get back to even all the time. And then that extra starts accumulating as a pool, and then you would always have that to pay some of those other expenses.
For credit cards, do you get an online? Can you do online stuff for credit cards?
Yeah,
Like a bank, you can see how much
Yep.
you spent?
you can still do that. Yeah. So,
Is this chart kind of like student loans?
kinda, but yeah, in a sense. And, but they would have, I don't know, I never had really student loans.
Didn't?
So I can't help you with that either. I just kind of worked hard and paid it all off as I went. All right, so look at page 154 on the top. On January 1st, Sonia has a $2,000 beginning balance on her credit card. Notice down on the bottom, or right in the middle, I guess, a blue chart. See where it starts with her $2,000? Okay? She's gonna charge another $100 per month on her credit card. So even though she has a $2,000 balance, she's still using her credit card. That's basically what it's saying. Each month she makes a minimum payment that is 1.5% of her current balance, rounded to the nearest dollar. Uh-oh. Molly's gonna have to round. Her credit card has an APR of 15%. They do a monthly periodic finance charge by the previous balance method. How much will she owe in 6 months? How much will she have paid in periodic finance charges? So again, if you go through the whole process that they did here, notice the next part. They took the 15% divided by 12 because they gave you an APR and they want you to have a monthly periodic rate. So that was the 1.25% after they did their division. Okay? From there, look at the process that they did. To find my finance charge, again, what's finance charge mean in this situation? It's the amount of interest, right? So I would take my previous balance, which is $2,000, times my 1.25%, which is my monthly periodic rate, to get my finance charge. Then I take my previous balance and add my finance charge and new purchases, so my current balance is $2,125. Everybody see where I'm at? So how do I find out my payment? In the paragraph, it says that I'm making 1.5% of my current balance as my payment. So my current balance is $2,125. I'm going to multiply it by 1.5%. Now, I don't know in your book, but in my book, the percentage was wrong. It looks like Tiff's was right. So you would take 2,125 times the 1.5% or 0.015, and that's where they get a payment of $32.
Why wasn't it? Oh, that's a different percent. What was this one? 1.5?
Yes. So this is, instead of saying what your actual payment is every month, they're saying it's 1.5% of your total. So in other parts, they're going to say, well, you made a payment of $100, or you made a payment of $200, and so on and so forth. Okay? So basically, the chart then goes through and it repeats itself over and over and over again. You do the exact same thing every single time. To find your finance charge, you use the 1.25%, and then you add $100, and then you figure out what your payment is. Okay? Does that make sense, what they did in the chart? All right. If you go down to example 2, basically you're doing the exact same thing, but notice up on top, the kind of tealish thing up on the next page. The only difference here is instead of deciding to continue using your credit card, she basically cut herself off. So notice in the new purchase column, she never made a new purchase. So obviously this is way better if you can, I guess, do this. Now obviously some people will still have to use that credit card, but if you can avoid totally not using it at all, which this lady did, then your amount's going to hopefully go down. So notice though, my finance charge in this case gradually goes down every single month, right? It's not by a whole lot, but a couple cents. But at least it's going down because my grand total is going down. Because I'm making payments and I'm not putting anything on. My payment is actually, about $8, $7 more than my finance charge. So me making a payment of $39 tells me that I'm gaining $7 a month. But that's where that green chart on page 155 comes back into play. If I'm only paying $7 off of my balance, it's going to take me a long, long time to get that entire balance done. Everybody see what I'm saying there? Okay, so in letter A, we're going to try to do this chart. So this is what you're gonna have to do for your assignment. So, at the beginning balance of January, so in letter A it says, in January of the next year, Sonia decides to pay $200 each month and make no more charges on her credit card. What is her balance at the end of 6 months? So, go back to the teal one, and your beginning balance for your next chart is going to be in the bottom right-hand corner. The 2513 number. Okay, so I would definitely do the exact same chart that they have. So this is my previous balance. Then I'm going to find my finance charge. Again, my finance charge is my interest, right? And then it says what? New purchases, we know because we made a promise to ourselves, or this lady did, that's going to be 0 every time. Then we're going to have a current balance. And then we're going to make a payment. And she's already committed to making what did it say in the problem? $200. And then we're going to have our new balance. Now remember, the new balance is going to just come and be my previous balance for the next calculation. So, everything else in this problem goes back to example 1, way back here. So to find my finance charge, what percent am I going to use again? 1.25. So basically, I'm going to take this previous balance, and this is what I would do at the beginning so I understand this. There's that monthly periodic rate. I'm going to take my previous balance times that monthly rate. And that's going to get me my finance charge, or the interest for that particular month. That makes sense? So, if you do this, this is where you're going to say it's kind of confusing because this number is going to be bigger than cents, meaning there's going to be more decimals than 2 places, so you're going to have to round here too. So this is where some of you will struggle. But if you do this, you should come up with this number right here. I rounded this number right there. Donald finally got his thing to work. Because of this percentage. I go way back here, and I'm still using the same monthly periodic rate. Okay?
So if it says monthly, there's just that one?
Yep. So, how much new purchases did we have? 0, because we committed to not using our credit card anymore. So, what's my current balance? What do I do with this number and this number? Add them together, and that's my current balance, right? So, Donald, 2513 plus 31.
2545.07.
Everybody agree? How much did we agree to pay off? $200. So my new balance is, what do I do with these two numbers? Subtract. So you put a big minus sign there if you want. So hopefully you can all do that math. Well, that's a fun one. 3, 4, 5. Yeah?
It'd be awesome if it was 0.67.
Yeah.
Let's change it. It's on this year.
It was so close, wasn't it?
Wait, so are we always running 2 places in this one?
Yes.
Let's just put it up.
Huh? You round what?
2 places.
Right.
1, 2, so you look at the third.
Yes. So, now that's only the first month. What did it say in the problem? 6 months, right? So, my new balance comes down here to this previous balance. My previous balance is my new balance. And basically now I'm going to do the exact same thing over again.
6 times?
6 times.
So do you always use the same to multiply?
Would that be 6?
You always are going to use this. You're always going to use this in this problem.
This is way easy.
Okay? Now, it got harder. The very first chart, the dark blue chart on page 154, was a little harder because you had to do more calculations here. Right? So to get their payment in that dark blue chart, they would have taken this times 0.015 to get that payment number. But here, they made it easy on you and told you what your payment was. I've committed, and this is kind of what Olivia was talking about. She's committed to $200 per month. Okay? In the first dark blue chart, she was just doing 1.5% of her total.
Is there no way we could like double stuff so we don't have to do it so many times?
Okay? So, if you want to try this by yourself once or twice to see what you get, go for it. But as Tiff said, I'm always multiplying by this percentage. And then for this, I'm going to take these two to get to that, and I'm going to add them together. And then I'm going to have a subtraction between my payment and my current balance. So, did somebody get through the whole second month?
Yeah.
What'd you get?
2174.38.
2174.38. What I got too, Donald? Finally got that calculator figured out. Alright, so again, this would have been 1, 2, they tell you to do this for 6 months, right? So basically, if I was going to do this entire problem, I'd have to do it 6 times. Now, if I'll help you out here. In the 6th month, you should have came down to $1,470.03. So, let's just take a look at this for example.
Wait, so they have purchases?
They're not using it at all, so there's no purchases.
I know, but if there was purchases, you subtract them from the.
No, then you would take your finance charge plus your purchases to this number, and that gets your current balance. So this one, if you really have purchases,
Plus
yeah,
equals
plus.
minus equals.
Exactly.
Plus.
Plus equals minus equals. Exactly. Alright? So, if we committed to not using our credit card anymore, but paying $200 a month, in 6 months, how much did we pay off?
So you take that minus that.
Exactly right. So I'm going to take my previous balance minus what I have as my new balance. So what did I start with? 25,1365 minus, oh, that's a big minus. Minus 1470.03. So this would basically be the beginning balance of this particular time frame and my ending balance of a time. And ours was 6 months. Right? Everybody understand what I'm saying there? So if I subtract those, I get what?
1,043.62.
Perfect. Woo! We are on fire today. So, go back to letter B and read out loud what letter B says.
What percent of Sonia's payments went towards paying off the balance of the card?
Okay, so does all of her payment go towards paying off the card? No, because I still have to take into account this part right here, right? So, how much did I pay? Well, this is how much affected my card, right? I took that much off of my debt. How much did I put into it? 200 times 6, exactly right. So that would be 1,200, right? So, when they ask you what they asked in B to find the percentage that you paid off, this is the amount paid on your debt. This would be the total amount paid into or paid on your debt. So what's the difference? This amount is because we had to take away all of these finance charges. So we didn't actually use all 1,200 of our dollars. Because we had to still pay interest on it. And we're always going to have that interest payment. So there's gotta be a gap in there, right? And then, remember, when they ask for a rate, I'm always gonna have a smaller number divided by a bigger number, because this number is gonna be a percent. So if you punch this in your calculator, what percent do you get?
86.968.
And I believe it said to round to the nearest percent, right? So we would have gotten 87%. So again now, what did the question say? Paying off the balance of the card. If we would have done the same thing in this blue chart, we would have done the same thing in the blue chart, we would have had a way lower percentage, because why? Yeah, because notice my payments compared to my finance charges. Again, we're only making $7 a month basically, right? Over here, even though that we had a finance charge, we're making basically how much payments? Roughly $170, right? So that's a big difference compared from the blue one to the one we do up here. That makes sense what I'm saying? So again, the blue one's my minimum payments. I'm making $7 a month. If I can do it, and this is what Olivia was basically asking, can I do this? Can I not use my card and have a bigger number to pay off? If I can do that, look how much I'm paying at a time, right? 87% is going towards my debt. In that blue chart, it was probably 4% or something. It would have been really low. We could have figured that out. I think they did, didn't they? Maybe not. Oh, they did the totals, but they didn't do the percent. Okay? Does everybody understand the process of figuring it out? So again, on your homework, you have to figure out if there's new purchases. Then, as Derek said, plus equals. And then I take that, and in the first example, that's where you would have had to figure out your payment. This is way easier when they tell you, or you figure out, hey, I'm going to do this amount per month. Maybe it's only $20, but you're going to make $20 all the time. And so even if it was only $7, or it was a difference, at least you're making payments on it. So that's a big deal. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, there's just a little bit more.
We should do this for like the rest of the year.
Okay. All right. So, turn the page. The next part they talk about is assessing your debt. Trying to figure out, do you have good debt or bad debt? Basically, these next 2 pages are telling you that everybody has debt, in a sense. Because when you talk about debt, you have to take into consideration the percent of one's income that is spent on housing and other debts. So even if you don't have a true house, you have an apartment, you got to have someplace to live, right? So your housing is always a debt to you, but you have to live somewhere. Okay? So you're going to always figure out for your debt the one's income that is spent on housing and other debts. So what are my other debts? Other debts are if I have a credit card, if I have any loans, okay, and I'm paying whatever, maybe it's a mortgage payment, maybe it's a car payment, maybe it's whatever, on a loan, those are all debts. All right, so how do I add up my monthly payments, debt payments? I'm doing my minimum payments, my loan payments, and my housing payments, and I'm going to divide that by my gross income. How much am I bringing in per month? That's what I have to know. So I'm taking my total debts divided by the amount of income that I'm coming up, and that's going to tell me a percentage.
And that's just the amount of debt that you owe?
That's
what you're finding?
Yep, in a sense. So look at page 156. See the, 4 categories they have here? So they're saying basically, if you look at these 4 categories, they're saying 36% or less. If you're from 0 to 6%, you're basically perfect. So in a sense, they're saying everybody should have just about 36% debt.
Really?
Because again, you have to pay for where you live. All right? So again, I've always had that payment. I can't avoid not living anymore. Well, some people do, but we call those people, oh well.
Moochers?
Okay, moochers is a good one. So then, notice the next ones. Begin, what's that say?
Reducing.
Reducing. So the next category is, okay, I'm a little high. Well, maybe that's because I have a car payment all of a sudden. You know, I wanted a new car coming out of college. So obviously my debt's going to be, Molly said, my student loans. So again, that's a loan payment. I might not have one until I come out of college, and so on and so forth, okay? So you're going to figure out what amount that is. And this then comes back to then figuring out your credit score. So the higher that you are of percentages, the lower your credit score is. And again, why do we need a good credit score? If we want a loan, if we want to try to buy a house, those kind of things. Well, if we have a bad credit score, banks won't even look at us then. If we have a good credit score, banks are going to take the chance of giving us some money. Okay? So, notice then on the other page, managing and reducing debt. This is our little pie chart. Notice some of the things that they recommend. Consolidation loans. So if you can get all of your loans from one bank or whatever, one creditor, it's better for you. So if you are trying to buy a house and a car at the same time, but you had your car payment through one bank and your house payment through another bank, that's kind of weird for creditors. They want you to be, because basically they're thinking that you're trying to skip out or be skimpy and you're trying to go around and find the quote-unquote best deal. And if you're a deal person, you're probably trying to cut corners a little bit. Not that it's a whole entirely bad thing, but a lot of the times if you can get all of your things on one bank or one credit place, they might lower your rates anyway. Because they have a lot invested in you anyway, right? They're getting a lot of your money anyway. So they might give you a little kind of break.
So you had like put the money saved up, and you were just gonna pay for the house in full, and like not to get a loan.
No one does that.
Again, that's where you have to decide how much of that full amount can I afford at that time. Buying a car, buying a house, can I pay the entire thing? If I can afford to do that, again, it's not a bad idea because then I don't have a payment, right? It's just, then you have to, again, think about my budget. How much do I have planned for this, and this? Can I afford to use a majority of my savings to buy that car or house, not have any money in there, and then what happens if when I buy that house, the heater breaks in the first month? Do I have money to pay for that? You know, so, yeah, that's just what you're capable of doing. That make sense? So I would just warn that you don't shortchange yourself. I mean, it's a great feeling to not have a payment on your house or your car or whatever, but also you got to have money in case something breaks down. Something, you know, unfortunately your house gets broke into and, you know, or you have a fire or you slide through the ice and get in a car wreck. Can I pay for that, you know? There you go. So, you got to take that into account, right? And then on page 157 again, the little pie chart is going to show you the things that that affects your credit score.
Do you have a, I don't know.
What's that?
The dumb question.
So, let's go back to letter C. We're on page 156. So now we're trying to figure out that debt to income ratio. All right, so again, we're doing what? All of our debts, any of our loans, anything that we owe on, divided by how much money we're bringing in. All right, so letter C, Hollister earns $3,000 each month. He pays $500 for housing, has $50 per month in other debt payments. What is his debt to income ratio? And is he good or bad? Okay,
He's good.
He's good.
so how much money or how much debt did we have? $550. How much did we bring in? Again, remember, it's a percent, so the smaller number should always be on the top. So, ladies and gentlemen, if your debt number is bigger than how much you're bringing in, you got lots of problems, right? You got lots of problems. So what'd you come up with?
18.3.
What?
He's had a good streak.
I got 1.18.
You got 18%, you got what?
I got up to that.
Oh. Yes. It's not what I thought he said.
What did you say?
He said 18. Claims.
Yeah, 18%.
Alright, so, is he good?
Yeah.
Heck yes, right? How about Lorna? Lorna earns $2,000, she has $8,000 for housing and $25 or $250 for other debt payments. How is she?
Yeah.
What's her percent? 51%?
Oof.
So again, what would your recommendation be to this lady?
Start paying off your debt.
Okay, what else?
Make less payments.
Get a better job, or
Then zero money.
it sounds like she's kind of living in a high-end place. Well,
800 per month.
it's compared to what she's making, it's a high-end
He
place,
needs to move.
right? So she either has to move or she's got to get another job, right? Or if her apartment's really nice, she's got more than one bedroom, she brings somebody else in and they split that $800 amount. Then if she's down to $450, it's probably a whole lot different, right? So you gotta just think about, those are the little things that you're gonna end up thinking about. Okay? So, here's the problems. I think the problems go pretty fast, except for maybe the first problem.
Oh.
First part's easy to start. Well,
She really paid 34%. She paid.
Do 34% then, if we could cut it in half. So that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, so she should do that.
The bad thing is, if her $800 is in Chicago, she's probably living in the slow neighborhood. Right?
Isn't she Chicago?
No, I'm just saying, you gotta take into consideration where her $800 is.
she's up to